All right, let's talk more about self-managed team. So many organizations are experimenting with an extension of the team concept they called the self-managed team. Proponents argue that shared control allowed a self-managed team to perform better than conventional teams, and that to better understand the nature of self-managed teams, we call attention to a few key differences between the self-managed teams and traditional teams. So now let's take a look at it. So self-managed teams differ, right, from conventional teams in a number of ways. In conventional teams, decision-making resides in the hands of a leader who provides the team with direction and maintains control over work-related decisions, right? So the decision in the hands of the leader. But in contrast, self-managed teams have a significant amount of decision-making authority. Members are charged with duties such as managing themselves and self-appraisals, planning, schedule work, making production or service-related decisions, do peer evaluations and conflict resolution, just about everything. So members take responsibility for outlining how they will achieve the team's objectives. So the leadership function in the self-managed team is different from that in the conventional team. Self-managed team members share or rotate leadership responsibilities and hold themselves mutually responsible for meeting team goals. So roles interchange frequently as members learn to be followers as well as leaders. Rather than being specialized, self-managed team members develop multi-skilled capabilities that make them very flexible in performing various tasks within the team. And the self-managed teams give all the team members a voice in making decisions about the design of work, and as well as greater autonomy, discretion in task accomplishment. So members operate without direct managerial supervision, and the idea almost unthinkable a generation ago. So the nature of the self-managed team is one of team rather than individual empowerment and accountability. Okay, so like I said, it's kind of unthinkable before. So depending on the types of decisions, the amount of authority vested in a self-managed team varies from one organization to another. For example, in some organizations, self-managed teams are given the primary responsibility for personnel decisions, such as hiring and firing team members, conducting performance appraisals, and determining compensation within specified limits. In other organizations, such decisions are left to the top management. So teams in this kind of setting are usually allowed to make small expenditures for supplies and equipment without prior approval. But like in most organizations, any action involving kind of large purchases must be approved by the top management. So by looking at this table, you will see that differences between a conventional and self-managed team at many levels, like the leadership characteristic, the team member role, accountability, work design, job descriptions, and the skill. And these are Exhibit 8.3 that should be self-explained. All right. So a primary reason for growth in this popularity of the self-managed team concept is the reported benefits by organizations, small, large organizations that have adopted it, they reported these benefits. So the self-managed work teams are praised for bringing about results such as increased productivity, accelerated new product development and process improvement, greater product and service quality, improved worker participation, and better decision overall, even reduce the operation costs. So this Exhibit 8.4 summarizes the benefit of these self-managed teams. So these outcomes do lead to increases in job satisfaction, which in turn have been associated with other positive organizational and employee outcomes, such as lower absenteeism rate, less turnover, higher motivation level, and self-esteem, increased organizational citizenship behavior, and ultimately increased level of profitability. It should be noted that the self-managed teams do exhibit the same general advantages of teamwork discussed earlier in this chapter, right? The effective team that we discussed earlier in this chapter. It is a question of how much further these benefits go when conventional teams are replaced by self-managed teams. So let's take a look at this. All right. So the last part for this chapter would just look at how the top management can contribute to the self-managed team success. So many things can go wrong with self-managed teams, and adjusting to new behavioral expectations can be very difficult. So many self-managed teams initiatives are eventually abandoned in many places. But for the self-managed teams to succeed, there has to be strong and substantial, sustained top management support. So the introduction of self-managed teams does threaten the positions of managers who are asked to function as team members instead of team leaders. So some rank and file employees may not be ready to handle the responsibility, right? So authority and accountability that self-managed teams put on them both ways. The self-managed team concept may go against the organization's old way of doing things and encounter resistance and even sabotage from other employees. Therefore, in planning the introduction of self-managed teams into the organization's structure, top management should abide by the following recommendations to ensure a higher rate of success. Okay? The recommendation would be 1, ensure organization-wide support and acceptance. So ensure that there is an organization-wide support and acceptance, very important of this self-managed team concept. This can be done by confronting critical structural and cultural questions such as, does a self-managed team have sufficient autonomy to perform its tasks and have access to information? Have conditions been created in which authority can shift between members to appropriately match the demands of their tasks? Are self-managed team participants adequately motivated and supported? Are there any psychological or functional walls preventing unity of purpose and action? So this structural, cultural alignment with the self-managed team concept increases the chances of success. Second, you could have a champion to support and defend the self-managed team from opponents who are threatened by the new concept and what it represents. A self-managed team champion is an advocate of the self-managed team concept, whose responsibility is to help the team obtain necessary resources and gain political support from top management and other stakeholders of the organization. and defend it from enemy attack. So this advocacy role is especially critical when there is hostility and distrust by other managers who are afraid that the self-managed teams will cause major shifts of power and authority in the organization. So the self-managed team champion is therefore constantly engaged in getting others to buy in and gaining commitment at all levels while communicating the benefits of the self-managed team. All right, and then allow adequate time for training so team members can bond with one another and form team skills. Effective team building interventions will break down barriers and create opportunities for greater cooperation. Selecting members for the self-managed team should be a careful and judicious process. Team member skills and experience should match task requirement, and the team diversity should be emphasized. And then what the top management should do is to provide specific goals and incentives, right, to ensure the organization has the necessary resources and time, money, and people to commit to this kind of change. And then avoid overreacting at the first sign of crisis. Team building experts caution against overreacting when the self-managed team starts experiencing problems. Top management should resist the urge to pull the plug on the new program or the tendency to micromanage it. So instead, a careful review and analysis of problem areas should be done before any action is taken. So let's discuss the changing role of leadership in self-managed teams and the challenges of implementing the self-managed team next. All right, here's it. In distributed leadership, multiple leaders take complementary leadership roles in rotation within the same self-managed team. So according to their area of expertise or interest, so the self-managed team facilitator also is the external leader of a self-managed team whose job is to create optimal working conditions so that team members can take on responsibilities to work productively and solve complex problems on their own. So these two roles are very important in the leadership in a self-managed team: distributed leadership and facilitator. A summary of the self-managed team facilitators' team building activities is presented in Exhibit 8.5 in your book. Employing these team building activities, employing these team building activities will generate greater identification with the team, especially as pride in the team's accomplishment grows. Okay, so all of these team building activity, what are they? Let's take a look at a few. Providing avenues for resolving interpersonal conflicts, creating opportunities for social interaction, increasing cohesiveness and cooperation among team members, facilitating high-level communication among team members, highlighting mutual interest, not differences of team members, using ceremonies, rituals, and symbols to build team identity and bonding, employing team-oriented incentives to foster team spirit. These are the team building activities that the facilitator should be doing. So employing these team building activities will generate greater identification with the team, especially as pride in the team's accomplishment grows, right? So the last part of this chapter is the challenges of implementing the self-managed teams. The decision to use the self-managed teams as a tool for re-engineering work in an organization is not always a guaranteed success. So many of the challenges of implementing self-managed teams stem from the difficulty of transitioning from a traditional command and control work environment to self-managed teams. So managers who have become accustomed to traditional autocratic management and jaded by management fad that come and go may resist or undermine a team approach. Even among members of the non-managerial ranks, the transition to self-managed teams has as much potential for the frustration and problems as it does for managers. So this is usually due to the unfamiliarity with the new structure and new routines and adjust to team responsibilities. So the greatest challenge may lie in setting and enforcing new behavioral expectations, made necessary by the absence of the traditional leader and the presence of new employee right and responsibility. All right, so that's the end of chapter 8. So I hope you enjoyed this chapter.